arguably the best team that Liverpool had was 13-14. Luis Suarez.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that team played, that was another one where it built up over a couple of seasons, and it reached that point. And I mean, what a side! How the football that Liverpool played that season was incredible.
Yeah, it was incredible. Of course, people say a lot the second part of the season, where we won so many games and 3-0 Man United. 5 against Arsenal?
Arsenal, was it Arsenal?
Arsenal 5, or
Everton,
after 30 minutes was 4-0 or 3-0, something like that. Yeah. So like Everton as well, 4-0 or
Tottenham twice, I think that year.
Tottenham, yeah. So incredible results. It's just that the people always say because of the Chelsea game. It's not because of the Chelsea game. It's the whole season.
Yeah.
Because if you lose against Chelsea, it shouldn't cost you a title, game, because sometimes you're gonna win, sometimes you're gonna lose against Chelsea. It's just, I think the whole season we just didn't do enough, let's say.
Can I ask probably a difficult question? I've always felt that looking back on that season, that game between Rodgers and Mourinho for me, and obviously Liverpool and Chelsea, I always felt like Rodgers had something to prove to Mourinho because he used to work for him. And I always wondered whether if he'd approached it a little bit more like maybe Rafa would have, or Mourinho himself maybe come for a draw rather than try and go at the throat of him, it could have been different. Did the players ever think like that?
Maybe now you can think that way. But on that moment, I don't know if you got videos, but for sure before that game, you guys were thinking exactly the same. We are scoring for fun.
Yeah.
We are beating teams 4-0, 5-0, 3-0. So why should we stay back against Chelsea at home?
Mm-hmm.
So,
looking
back now, it's very easy to say, we should. Yeah, maybe we should. But in that moment, the team were on fire.
Yeah.
3 games to go, and it's really hard, Maybe yes, if we approached maybe a little bit more defensive, or things would have been different. But in that moment,
that team maybe isn't what it was if it plays defensively.
Yeah, you take the excitement, I guess, wouldn't you? It's interesting that game, just what kind of lasted, because we talked a number of years ago at Melwood, and we talked about how you'd used your experience to bring on, to advise some younger players who'd had some tough times because you've been through it yourself. But that game, Steven Gerrard comes out of that game probably at the lowest point of his career almost. What was that like? Because he's such a big figure, and does he take that? He takes that stuff quite personally, obviously.
I remember we felt. I remember Brendan said in the halftime. He said, "Let's do it for him, because he saved us so many times.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, nobody's like him. So we couldn't, on that day. If you look back as well, if something like this were going to happen, thank God it was him. Because can you imagine if it's another player to happen?
They'd never come back from it, would they?
It would have been finished, life's finished in Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you try to look the positive side, he can take that because he's what he is, he's a legend and he's done so much. So, but we felt, I felt devastated because we knew how much it meant for him to win the Premier League, and so it was really hard on that moment, but you just have to get up and keep going, and
And moving on, and so obviously we talk about the criticism of maybe some fans who's never warmed to you or whatever, but the amount of managers who were more than happy, in fact, very more than happy to put you in the first team. You consider you're going back. Rafa Benitez brought you in. There's a man who's won European Cups. You know, we'll not talk about Roy Hodgson too much because he's not big on this channel. But you know, Kenny Dalglish, probably some of the best games you played for Liverpool.
Probably my best time, yeah, under him. Yeah.
And then moving forward from that, Brendan Rodgers, you know, he was comparing you to Busquets at one point, and how he kind of saw you as an important part of that team. Whether that worked out, obviously not quite the same. And then you look like you're on the way out, and then Jurgen Klopp brings you back in again. I mean, how does that feel, particularly with the Jurgen thing? It looked like, Brendan, your time was done at Liverpool. You were going to go to. It looked like Turkey was done.
Yeah.
How does that change? You know, there's a couple of times you looked like you were leaving. Was it a word from Jurgen, or was it just?
No, with Brendan, of course, things changed for me at the team. You know, of course, they were building a team a little bit different, and I was just trying to, you know, to find a place where I could play a little bit more. You know, I was at an age that you know, I felt that I could play every game or almost every game. Of course, I had some issues, injuries, but so I just felt that Brendan as well wanted another type of player. So it was just a normal thing that it happens in football. You know, you don't last forever. So, but it didn't happen for some reason, injuries, and then I got back in, and then, you know, kept going, and of course Jurgen arrived, and then of course the last 18 months was really good. Of course, I played different positions, centre back as well, but I just felt, you know, I wasn't going to be part of the future. That's the reality, you know. And when you start to play in different positions, you know, I wasn't going to be a first choice centre back, for example. You know, I'm fine to understand that. Yeah. I wasn't going to be a first choice midfielder, so I always been in between. Yeah. You know, I had 1 year left only, so you start to think about the future. It's normal, you know. I knew that I wouldn't renew my contract. Yeah. You know, Liverpool wouldn't offer me a new contract, so I started to think a lot of things, you know. And then, of course, I had to make a decision, but my relationship with Jurgen was very good and still is. So it was just, I would say, he arrived in a different time where you know, my time was different. If he was there maybe 5 years ago, it would have been, you know, a little bit different for me. But that's how life it is, and you know, you have to move on.
Yeah.
When you make that save, I was like, oh, he saved my life. And I see like Carragher straight come to me, like, what's going on? I'm like, whoa.
What do you do then? I'm like, I'm a footballer, songwriter, singer. And
Astronaut, cowboy.
And I'm like, no, really.
I think it was sharing that moment with my mates, so like Sir Henderson, Andy Carroll, Spio and stuff. It was a moment I'll never forget.
If I would have told like my 10-year-old self when I'm pretending to be Steve McManaman on the wing that I'd be like shaking his hand and just having a normal conversation with him. It's crazy.
Today I scored 4 goals in training, huh? Believe me.
And you know, piggybacks. Steve Finnan, I bent down, Steve Finnan pushed on the bottom of my back, jumped over me, and that's what started my back injury off.
It was fantastic to come to Liverpool because this was my club.
I want to focus on, you know, trying to make people's lives better in my community, but I always will as well represent what we are, which is football fans.
I signed for Liverpool, King Kenny signed me, and I will always be grateful to that because he gave me the chance, obviously, to become a better footballer and one of the biggest clubs, for me the biggest.
I was so happy, not only with myself, but also with the first title after 10 years. I was really happy that I was able to make that save to win the first cup.
Building an organisation, a culture, a structure within the club that has done everything it needs to do to give Jurgen and the team everything they need to do to lift these 4 trophies over this period and many more to come.